Good morning. I'm thankful to be together with you this morning. If you're a guest with us today, you picked an awesome day to show up for church because today is Business Sunday, which is probably why a lot of the friends that normally sit next to you are not here this morning. But this is an important day for us as we kind of look over the year. Once a year, we kind of pull back the curtain on what happens behind the scenes in a church like ours, and that includes a lot of numbers, right? And so if you are administrative-minded, maybe that's your gift mix or your temperament or the things that you love, you love administration, then this is your day. Like, we considered getting popcorn and having it for you guys because this is a special day. I'm actually wired that way, so I get really excited about this day. If you are wired differently, this is a great day for you to thank God that He has gifted people that are not like you to handle all those other things. Amen? We need each other. There's different gifts, and they all serve each other. So I'm thankful for your gifts that are unlike my gifts, and we can work together for the glory of God. Just picture with me today like a budget conversation in your home. Okay, hopefully you have these. Maybe it's just you in your home, or maybe it's you've got a wife or you've got kids, but you have to talk through kind of the financial picture, and you plan because you want to make sure that your bills are paid. Hopefully you're having these types of conversations, and that you got money set aside for food and all that kind of stuff. This is just doing that with extended family. Okay, that's the way we can kind of look at it this morning. And you'd be hard-pressed if you were to look throughout the Scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament, to find God working in a place outside of His people being the ones He's working through. And so that's true for us today. God works in this community because He's called you and I to be present in this community, to leverage our gifts, times, treasure, talents for His purposes in this place. And I love it. It's an amazing story that we're part of. The Creator of the universe has decided to work through you and I. I mean, we could just sit on that for a few minutes and marvel at that. So when we're talking about the business of the church, we're not discussing this building. We're talking about us working together to leverage these things for God's glory. And we take time to reflect on the numbers because it's a way of thanking God for how He has actually worked in our midst, how He has met needs, how He has provided for different things. And we have been doing this now since the late 70s when a group of people actually sold some of their items and their property to come up and buy this piece of property to plant a church and see God's kingdom come. So it's a really cool story, and we're just continuing that story. We're just another chapter in what God is doing here, carried along by the Spirit. So Alyssa's going to come in just a few moments to run us through the numbers, but I want to share just a very brief reflection first on why I think it's important to have a Sunday like this. Jesus, you probably know this, he actually had a lot to say about money. Has anybody run into something in the Scriptures where Jesus is talking about money? He had a lot to say about it. And I think it's probably because He's the Lord of the universe, and He's aware that money is one of those things that can get its hooks into our hearts and lead us into things that are not good. In fact, I was just reflecting on this yesterday. Do you know that Judas actually had some issues with money? That he was dipping into the money bag? You can find that. Go look for it. So there was something that was happening in that guy's heart, and it was actually related to the finances, which is interesting. So, and you know this, and I know this, we want to be kind of in charge of our own story versus to live open-handed and trusting God's our provider. And so it can really be something that controls us, and we want to be actively participating in what God is doing because it's way more freeing to just say, Lord, it's all yours in the end. I'm not worried about it. So here's an example. Matthew 25. Jesus tells this story about a master that goes away on a journey, and he entrusts his servants with differing amounts of money. Again, this may be a familiar text. He gives 5 talents to one, 2 talents to another, 1 talent to a third. And it says each according to his ability. So he blesses them with these different things. And he comes back, and the first 2 servants invested what they were given. They doubled it. And he has this conversation with them, and he says, man, great job. You've been faithful with a little. You're blessed because of that. Good job. The last servant, buried his talent because he was scared. He was scared. And though he returned that talent back to the master rebukes him for his inaction. And it's super, super harsh. Like at the end, there's a lot of hell language actually in this whole chapter 25. But he calls him wicked and lazy, and he removes what he was given. And the point of the parable is pretty blunt, that God actually expects us to actively engage with what he's provided us. Again, because it's all his in the end. He entrusts us with abilities, with opportunities, with resources, with skill sets, and it's meant to be stewarded, it's meant to be developed, and it's meant to be put to work for his kingdom purposes in our city. And so what we're about to share today, it's not, hey, good job, Living Word. We're just really just staying accountable to you because these are your resources. And we are joining arms together to say, God, how can we honor you with all this? And so we're just keeping it in front of you. And we're praying, God, continue to work in this place. Anybody praying that? Hopefully you are. Okay. I'm going to welcome now our executive administrator to come and lead us through the numbers. So give her a hand as she comes up.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I am Melissa, if you don't know me. I work as the administrator, so I get to do a lot of the fun things, bookkeeping, payroll, all the other fun administrative activities. Every year, like Drew said, we talk about the church income and expenses. Just to be transparent, we really value transparency and really getting to show you the physical impact of your contributions and being able to steward that throughout the year. So as we move in to the next slide, we're going to talk about really the context, the funds. We're going to talk through what they are, what they're used for, and then we'll dive into the numbers, the balance sheet, what Foursquare recommends for those numbers, because they have a few percentages that they recommend, and then how those break down to help our mission to connect and grow and serve our community. So jumping into the funds, you've been here for a while.
I'm going to interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
You received a handout when you came in. If you're somebody who wants all of the details, we have those printed too in many pages. So if that's you, as she's continuing to talk, just raise your hand and I'll bring you a packet. I knew that I was going to get one from Stacy.
The packets are not as fun. They don't have all the colors and the graphs, but. So for the funds, we have 5 main funds. Our operating fund is the big one. That has things like personnel expenses. So we have salary, we have wages, we have payroll taxes, L&I, those types of things. We also have our utilities are in here. We have the main ministry kind of week by week expenses. So men's ministries expenses, women's, kids next door. We also have office supplies here. The next big one is going to be the building fund. So this one is for those bigger picture building fund activities. So if you guys were here for the courtyard remodel, that's in there. If we paint the building, that's out of the building fund. The next one is the youth fund. As you guys are probably familiar with the 5 for 5 fundraiser in July that we do. This helps raise money for camp. So this is kind of where we put the dollars from that fundraising. The missions fund is the next one. This one kind of encompasses a lot, but I know we're fresh out of the arrival season, but we have arrival that goes into there, and then in January it's broken up between benevolence and Living Works and our missions partners and the Mexico trip and church planting, and then there's a few other little ones in there. The tithe return fund, so we tithe 10% of our tithes and offerings every month to Foursquare. Foursquare gives a portion of it back, and that's where that goes. So it goes into that fund and it's used for very specific things like leadership development. So if a staff member wants to take a class to support their ministry and growth within their ministry, or wants to buy a book or things like that. We also have some retirement contributions that come out of that tithe return as well. And then for council members or board members now, when we do our Sunday meetings once a month, they have to listen to me talk about numbers for a really long time. So we provide lunch. So those are the 5 main funds. And I say the main ones because we do have 2 others that get a little nitty gritty. So we have the Petersburg Church Plant Fund, which is a church plant in Alaska. We hold the money for them, and then when they need it, we distribute the money, but it's their funds. So it's not our money. We don't put money into it. It's not used for anything else within our church. We just kind of help hold it for them and manage it for them.
I'll interject real quick on that one. That's in partnership with Foursquare and their church planting efforts. And so they asked us to be a part of that. They have funded a lot of that. And so like she said, we're just holding the funds for them. We believe in Chris. We talk to him, John and EJ talk to him on the regular. And we believe what he's doing up there, but it's in partnership with the larger Foursquare, the church planting efforts. And so that's...
Yeah. The next one is the North District Camp Fund. So if you're familiar with the high school, middle school camp, we have a bunch of churches within our district that go. And to make things easier, Silver Lake Bible Camp, where we go, they send us a big bill of all the churches in our district that go together. And so the churches just pay us their portion of what they owe, and then we just make the big check to send to Silver Lake Bible Camp. So it's a little bit easier than everybody sending them a million checks, and we all go together and we work together. So we split up some of the administrative roles when it comes to the camp. So again, that one, not our money, we just kind of help manage it. So they're on here, but they're not on here just for confusion's sake. The next portion of things is the balance sheet. So if you have coffee, drink some coffee, brace yourself, there's lots of graphs. So we have kind of the context of those funds. We can see the balances for these funds. So the balance sheet is really just a fancy way of saying what was the end amount in these funds at the end of the year after all the things, all the expenses, all the income that came in. So you can see the numbers up here for the different ones. You have the 2 that we just talked about, Petersburg Church Plant Fund and the North District Camp Fund at the top. And then it trickles down. The biggest one, obviously, the operating fund. We have lots of expenses that come out of there. Think of your normal monthly budget, like Drew was saying, but multiply it by a bunch because we have 27,000 square feet and hundreds of people coming in the building every week. So lots of cleaning supplies, lots of paper clips and staples and all the fun things.
I will say, maybe you're going to mention this, but the missions fund looks kind of interesting because there's 125,000 in there. Like, are we not doing anything for missions? Well, that's so big because we do the arrival offering at the end of the year. So that gets spent throughout the year, but in January and February, it looks really large because the money just came in for some of our missions efforts. So that's, if you're like, are we doing anything with missions? That's why that's so big.
Yeah. If you're wondering what the arrival was, if you weren't here that week when we talked about it, we were able to collect $82,577, which I think is pretty great. So yes. So like we talked about before, that'll get split up, which we discuss it with Andrew or John and EJ. They talk with their missions partners. They have really close relationships with them. So we really kind of figure out in January, like, where are the needs? Can we continue with this amount of monthly support for these partners? And then how can we bless them more with what we've been able to gather? So that's talked about in January, and then council reviews it and approves it. And then we make those distributions for the rest of the year. So we have that budget to kind of go off of every month for those things like Living Works and Benevolence and the Whidbey Islands Women's Clinic as well. We have the building fund up there. I wanted to mention this one as well. We received a pretty large credit from the IRS last year, which was super great. Love when the IRS gives us money. So we, as a council, talked about it for a while, even before I was on, and the approval was to put about half of that, a little more than half, into the building fund, just to help prepare us for future projects. As you probably know with your own homes, things are expensive. So if we ever paint the building, it's a lot, or if we ever have to replace windows or things like that. So the building fund had a good bump of money in 2025 so that we could really set ourselves up for success for years to come.
Getting our driveway done is a lot different than getting your personal driveway done. Just add a bunch of zeros.
Yes. The tithe return fund, as we mentioned, we get that money back from Foursquare. So that is really specific on what we can spend it on. It's pretty specific to leadership development only. So that can't get used for things like the electric bill or anything like that. So that one doesn't have to be emptied at the end of the year. We try to use it as we go so that we can bless the people on staff, allow them the ability to grow within their position, but then also grow if they are sent somewhere else or called to go somewhere else. They have the skill set that they are called to kind of acquire as they're here. The missions fund, that one I did want to mention, we don't, like for things like benevolence, we don't have to spend all of it by the end of the year, but we do like to, as we get close to the end of the year and we're looking at the budgets and things, really trying to bless the partners that we have. Knowing that we have a little bit left over in their budget, we can give them a little bump at the end of the year, kind of a Christmas bonus per se, and to be able to support them. And then especially with the benevolence, there's a lot of people that need a lot of help during the holiday season. So when we trickle down, if we don't get a lot of benevolence needs throughout the year and we have a lot more at the end of the year, we're able to bless a lot of people in December, which is super awesome.
I think a good example recently was Micah and Victoria, who are here with us, that were on furlough. Is that the right word? They're on furlough. They're heading back into the field. And so John and EJ met with them, and we were able to bless them as they're getting ready to go back into the mission field. So it's great to be able to do that. And we're able to do that because of your generosity, so thank you.
The youth fund is pretty similar too. We don't have to use all of it. We fundraise, and if we get more than we need for camp, that's great. So there is a little left over from last year that we had, which is super awesome. That can go towards kids camp and middle school and high school camp this year, which is super great. The next graph to show you is just showing you over the years the expenses and the income. So in the lighter blue, you'll see the income, and then the darker blue is the expenses. So you can kind of see with your own budgets probably things are getting more expensive, which is unfortunate. And then with a big building, that's a lot more expensive. So it'll trickle up as you go from 2022 to 2025, but the income as well has gone up with contributions from community members, our church family, and then the IRS, which is super great too. The next portion of our business meeting is going to be breaking down the operating fund expenses. So to kind of start off with context on the operating fund, there are two types of income for operating fund. We have our tithes and offerings, which is the big portion of it, and then we have other operating income, which is merch table income. We have the rent for the parsonage. We have facility rentals for things like weddings. So that's a smaller portion, but overall that creates the operating fund income. Now for the expenses, we have a few categories, and then there are little categories within those. So the first category, obviously that extension tithe we talked about, we tithe 10% of the tithes and offerings, not the whole operating fund income, but just that tithes and offerings amount to Foursquare. The next portion is personnel expenses. So we have 6 pastors on staff, and we also have 7 other employees. So we have a pretty big staff for our church, just to be spread across the ministries and the things that we're doing here on campus and then out in the community. So we do have a little bit bigger personnel expense. The next one is contract labor. This one is things like we have a partner, Wisdom Over Wealth, that handles some of the nitty-gritty portion of our bookkeeping and the taxes. So they do a lot of that work, so we pay them to do that, and they handle some of the payroll stuff as well. And then this also covers things like honorariums for people that come out of town and can speak for us on a Sunday morning. We like to bless them when they come. Facility operation is all the main bills, so the garbage bill, the electricity, the sewer, and the water, and all the other fun stuff.
I'm actually glad that your facility is not, your home facility expenses are not that much.
Yes. The next one, where did I go? Oh yeah, can we go back one more? There we go. Missions and ministry expenses is things like the women's ministry, the men's ministry, Kids Next Door on Sunday mornings. We also have worship. And then the last one is administration, all the fun stuff like the copier and paper and all the fun things.
Post-it notes.
Yes. All right, now to that pie graph. So if you're a pie graph person, I am a pie graph person. We have a visual for you if you wanted to see how it's broken up. Our total expenses for the operating fund were $964,000 and some change. And so those broken up between those main categories, you can see that. The next portion of it is really talking about Foursquare's recommendations. So Foursquare has been doing this for a long time. They deal with a lot of churches, so they have a good breakdown of what those percentages should look like. So we see that whole pie chart and we see like our facility operation is really expensive or our personnel expenses are really expensive. They have percentages to kind of keep an eye on as we're working through stewarding the finances that we have for the church with council members, to be able to keep an eye on things as costs go up around the community and inflation and all those types of things. So the biggest one that they have is outside of the extension tithe, obviously they recommend that we tithe 10%. The mortgage, so we don't have a mortgage.
That is a must.
Yes, that is a must, yes.
Not recommended, that's a
Yes.
requirement
Yes.
of us.
The mortgage recommendation for Foursquare is that it be 30% or less of our operating fund income. We don't have a mortgage, which is great. So that's 0% for us, which is amazing. So our personnel and contract labor being at 65%, Foursquare recommends 40. And they recommend 40 if our mortgage is at 25% or below. They don't deal with a lot of churches that have zero mortgages, so we're pretty lucky in that respect. So we do have the wiggle room to be able to afford the personnel and contract labor expenses being a little bit higher than a normal church. With that said, we do keep a pretty close eye on it with our council members. We have 9 council members, 10.
Yeah, it's something that we keep an eye on because, as you know, that's not a number you want to continually to increase, because we want money to be going to ministry. And you can ask the council, we'll stand them up in a little bit, but that's something that we've talked about is, hey, let's make sure that we're doing all right there. But because of these two numbers together with mortgage and some of those costs, we're still under that recommended for those two. And so at this point, we're comfortable with where we're at.
The next portion, my favorite portion, is really seeing the physical kind of dollars in action in the community. So we get to kind of break it up between connection, growing in our community here, and then also in like Oak Harbor, and then even into Anacortes as we do activities at Living Rock a lot, and then serving the community at large. So the biggest one, or the first one, Connect. So we spent a little over $37,000 connecting with people on Sunday mornings. That's also guest speakers, one-on-one connections with people, like taking people out for coffee. Kids VBS is a big event for the kids to get to connect, and then the parents as well get to connect with our Kids Men team. We also have the big holidays, Christmas and Easter, where we get a lot of new people that come in, and then people from out of town, so we get to make some connections there. And then through Amy Jansen kind of leads the Connect lunches. And then Church for the City is another big one where we have kind of the two aspects. We have a huge connection portion of that morning service, and then connecting with the other churches, but then we also have a serve aspect to that. The next portion, growing, we spent $81,000 on things like discipleship and marriage ministry, getting to grow in our marriages and then together within those. Men's and women's ministry, our high school, middle school youth groups, our children's ministry on Sunday mornings, and then young adults and worship team as well. The last one is serve. We spent $119,905 serving the community through Benevolence and Living Works and Oak Harbor Schools and our missions partners that we talk about during Arrival, our local church plants, the Mexico Build, and the huge serve portion of Church for the City, which is super awesome. So I know we've talked about our mission as a church and our values that we have, and having serving as one of those where we really feel called, and we've talked about it a lot lately, serving our community and leveraging those talents that we mentioned to be able to serve the people around us. And it's really cool to see really the fruit of all of that and like the action behind it. The next portion, and we're almost done, no more pie charts, I promise. Average attendance. So we wanted to pull some numbers so that we could see really where our church numbers are on if we can go to the next one. Slide. Oh no.
Denied.
I can read them off. Okay. Sunday morning attendance, we average per Sunday 396 people, which is super awesome. Adults. So that's just in here on Sunday mornings. For Sunday mornings in the other building for kids ministry, we average 112 between downstairs and upstairs. For online attendance, we average 467 people per Sunday. For high school youth group, we average 20.
I will say those numbers, it's connected to Sunday, but people connect with our service throughout the week as well. So it's not just Sunday, it's actually the week, and those averages are taken from the engagement that happens each month.
Yeah, we get a lot of live streams.
Boggles my mind every time I see those numbers.
Yes. High school youth group attendance averages between 26 and 30. And then middle school youth group attendance is about 35, which is pretty great. So, yeah. Our next portion, which I'm going to pass it off to Drew, is our formerly known as council members, now known as board members.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So some of this is just going to be repeated information that you guys have heard before, but we have a council, which is now a board because of our shift from charter to covenant. So board members, it's going to take me a couple years to get used to saying board members, but they meet with me and Alyssa once a month, as she mentioned, to review the finances of the church. Their primary responsibility is fiscal. It's caring for the finances of the church and then caring for our staff. And so board members serve a 2-year term, and then they can actually be voted in to serve a consecutive 2-year term, and then even later can come back on again. But it's by the vote of the body, okay? And so we shift, the board members come onto the council or onto the board in staggering years so that we maintain the historical knowledge of what's happening in this place. And so it's not like a clean swipe and then a new board. There's always somebody on the board that has been carrying the information forward. And so currently those that serve on our board are Mike and Beth Clark. I don't know if we got, oh yeah, there you go. Those on the left. Ty, Tuin, Alex, Grassman, Ryan, Steve, you can read. That's who our current board is. But the term is ending for Ty, Roosevelt, and Teresa. And I don't know if any of them are here. They're done. So they're like, I'm out. But we just want to thank them. If you know who they are, will you thank them? It is an incredibly important role that is carried that has a significant weight, as you would know. So if you see them, thank them for their service for the last couple of years. That's a lot of meetings. That's a lot of numbers. But beyond that, it's carrying just kind of what holds our community together and keeps us pointed in the right direction. So we thank them for that. And then coming on or voting on, I gave you some information 2 weeks ago that Ada and Jerome are nominated to serve a second term. So Jerome, could you stand? I think I'm too early to have Ada. She says oh no, she's back. Okay. And then John Matson. John, okay. And so, stay standing. So for those of you that call Living Word home and are invested here, if you're a guest with us, man, you can just watch. This is some family business. But if you approve of these 3 individuals stepping onto our board to help facilitate for the next 2 years, by show of hands, just raise your hand. Okay. So I think you're all right in this service. We'll see next service, though. All right. Can we thank them again for stepping into that role? All right. Well, that's kind of it for the business meeting. So here's what we'll do. Alyssa and I will stay up front. We wanted to leave some time. That's why we're ending a little bit earlier. That if you have more questions or you're looking at something, those of you that grabbed one of these, Stacy, and you want to ask more questions, we're going to be up here doing that. But let me pray for us, and then we'll go. Lord, today we just pause to honor you. We're only able to walk through these things because you have graciously provided. And so we're telling a story today of your goodness and your grace. your provision, your kindness to people in our city and really around the world. And we ask for wisdom as we continue to move forward together, that you would grant us eyes to see, a heart to perceive what it is that you want for us and what it is that you want to do through us. Lord, strengthen us by your Spirit to trust you, to be obedient to your call and stirring, so that we can see your kingdom come on this place, in this city and around the world. We pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. All right. God bless you as you go. Have a great week. We'll be sitting up here.